Week 7, AI ethics presented by me, and the slides were designed by my friend Zahid. That's us. We're both CS majors, and we're both first year CS majors. And yeah, uh, before we get started, we like to define some terms. So, artificial intelligence for this lecture will basically mean systems that perform tasks normally, requiring human cognition, perception, reasoning, and decision making. ML itself is a subfield of AI, and algorithms, as we've learned, as we've told you before, learn patterns from data to improve performance on tasks. Um, DL or deep learning is a specific field of ML with multi-layer neural networks. You guys should have done this before. And it excels at unstructured data, so images, audio, text. Also, did I turn this off? I pressed the button by mistake.
Oh wait, it's okay. Can I look? You should.
Oh no, it's actually on.
Oh, it's on.
Was it off before?
No, it was on before. I saw the. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's AI, ML, and DL for you guys. So we've been learning a lot about like what AI is, how it works, and how we can apply it to ourselves. Today we're going to talk about how AI is applied to like the real world, right? So actually, you don't have candy, but if you answer our questions, we'll definitely get you a lot of points for your TA group. We should have actually brought candy in hindsight, but well, whatever. So what does AI do? AI does a lot of things. It does things ranging from healthcare, to automobiles, to surveillance, to entertainment. It might help you with studying depending on how you use it. How many people here have used an AI in the last week? Okay, that's good. That's good. Because I would hope that as CS majors and people that are at least studying things related to CS, we would be using the cutting edge technologies that we have at hand today. So yeah, does anybody have like any examples of how they've used AI in the past few days relating to these topics or really anything? Anybody got any like examples to give?
Summarize textbook information.
I see.
And what TA group are you in? Cheer Boston.
I use it to find out what I need to do on Mario Kart to get a new skin.
Okay. Okay, that's unique. I like that. What's up?
What TA group? Jason.
Say again? Oh, I see. I see. Okay. What's your TA group? Guys, when you answer, just be sure to like shout out your TA group as well. Gotcha. This guy behind? Valid, bro. I respect it. Okay. What was your TA group? Sunflower. Okay. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's focus on one AI system that's primarily used in healthcare, the medical diagnostic AI system. The medical diagnostic AI system was designed by Microsoft, and it's basically like a robot doctor in the sense that it gives you like accurate diagnosis or diagnoses that human doctors typically can't pick up. And it showed that by having an 85% accuracy rate versus a 20% accuracy rate of 21 human doctors, right? So in essence, the MAIDXO was 4 times more accurate than your average human doctor. And yeah, so it absolutely housed them. I'm not sure how many of you guys watched the show House of D, but that's where the image is from. And it's 20% cheaper in ordering medical tests. So not only is it more effective and accurate, it's actually more cost effective, right? So it's still in research and it has yet to be implemented across the nation or across most institutions, but it's getting there. And this is one of those things that you might see in a few years at your local doctor's clinic. Stuff you might be a little more familiar with, because obviously I don't think any of us have ever heard of NAI DXO before today, but you've definitely heard of Instagram or TikTok, right? And there's a decent chance that you have one of these apps on your phone, and your algorithm works very hard to keep you entertained and locked in on doom scrolling. But a lot of you have also probably used ChatGPT, which I'm sure most of you guys have, and you'll see that um, you'll see that all of these things, they're what? They're algorithms, right? And they're used to keep you locked in, and that's what AI is kind of for nowadays. So you'll see an example in the next slide of a bigger picture. So AI influences important things, and they can do tons of cool stuff. But unethical AI can be discriminatory, privacy violating, unregulated, and it's our job as humans to regulate AI so we can protect human rights. And AI ethics is important to discuss in general. So we'll be locking in on justice, fairness, transparency, data rights, and privacy, and copyright in general. I think we also added AI ethics and warfare at the end, so if that's your thing, then stay tuned. But yeah, fun fact: the Department of Homeland Security has an informative document specifically talking about the threats that could be caused by deepfakes. So, does anybody want to explain what a deepfake is? Because it's been a hot minute since I've heard that term myself. Does anybody want to go over it for like a TA point? Okay.
You take the likeness of another person and you kind of just like make them say or do something that's not actually them.
Yeah, yeah, basically, it's like the video. It's like the video equivalent of Photoshop.
Are you lavender?
So yeah, that's what deepfakes are, and DHS has a full document that you can actually access and read online relating to those threats. So let's move on to bias in AI. So there are two types of biases that we can discuss, and we'll be discussing today actually. So data bias is one of them, and the other is algorithmic bias. So does anybody have like any like guesses like based on like the terms themselves of like what they could actually mean? Go for it.
Maybe like if the data set contains maybe the output of the AI would also be leaning towards more of those people's opinions.
That's a pretty spot on definition actually. Look, you're sure you can. And does anybody have like any first guesses on what algorithmic bias means? Okay, you
This is just a guess, but maybe since the AI would like try to find the most like probable algorithm, maybe like the algorithm would be the generated algorithm would be something that doesn't really account for diversity.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean, and actually, you're not too far off either. Go ahead.
I think in comparison to like I use physical sciences research, data bias reminds me of like sampling error, and then algorithmic bias would remind me of like maybe the system itself was designed poorly. So you're getting the same problem no matter what data you feed in because the system itself hasn't shipped the algorithm that was designed.
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming. Actually, we're going to talk a lot more about sampling errors because one way to make your AI stronger is to input a wide variety of data sets into it, right? So we're going to actually be talking about that in the upcoming slide. So that's fantastic. Kudos to you that you mentioned it. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's talk about bias in AI in a more detailed manner. So data bias itself is sampling bias, as you said. It also consists of historical bias and measurement bias. Um, so sampling bias is one type of bias that we'll specifically focus on because let's say you have like 100 people, right? And you're looking at how many of them like chocolate over vanilla in their ice cream, right? Now let's say amongst 100 people, you have 80 people that really like vanilla, and you have 20 people that really like chocolate. If you go and only interview 20 people, the 20 people that like chocolate, and come back and say, okay, 100% of the population likes chocolate, then you're giving a false reading because you haven't captured the entire population's opinions. You only captured a very small subsection of that population, right? That's basically sampling bias, and it's actually represented pretty well in that diagram up there, where you just see like a couple of people being selected from like a bunch. So yeah, that's what that is. Algorithmic bias is like where you have like architectural biases, so as you said, like a system that just is not designed that well, that has a lot of flaws and drawbacks in it, a lot of loopholes. And speaking of loops in general, we have feedback loops and human in the loop. Does anybody want to like guess at what human in the loop means? I think it's a pretty straightforward definition. Anybody want to take a guess? Go for it.
Maybe it means that humans will like categorize or give feedback on the output, and that will be like implemented into the algorithm.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Does anyone like take a guess on what feedback loops are? It's a TA point, guys. Come on, go for it. Anybody have any guesses on what feedback loops could mean?
Like kind of like if you catalog yourself, like if you like click when you get like a right answer, and then your like brain thinks about like oh that answer must be right because I heard the click sound. Is that like kind of like a positive reinforcement feedback loop, or no?
Sort of. Feedback loops are more about like taking what the AI gives you and henceforth improving it based on the feedback you receive from it. But I can see where you're coming from. I do get that. What was your TA group? Daisy, and you were Cherry Blossom. Okay. Um, yeah. So a big core part about AI ethics is stable diffusion. And stable diffusion is basically where your system, where your facial recognition system takes like a lot of faces and amalgamates them, and it sort of like outputs like an average face for like different like roles of society. So over here you see, what's one thing that you guys notice for the, I'm not sure if you guys, this is high paying occupations up here. Architect, lawyer, politician, doctor, CEO, judge, engineer. What's one thing that you guys notice from these images? Top row.
They're all men.
All men. You also said something?
Yeah.
Same deal, right? And what's one thing that you notice in the low paying occupations in the bottom row? So you have housekeeper, social worker, teacher, cashier, fast food worker, dishwasher, and janitor. What's one thing that you guys notice?
They seem to be like coming from like the same demographic groups.
Yeah, basically they're all minorities, right? And the issue with AI is that, well, it doesn't have that level of social correctness in it. It's just going to output whatever data set you feed it. And the problem here is that by doing so, you're kind of like enabling and reinforcing like a lot of stereotypes that already exist that we don't need anymore in the world. So that's one issue of stable diffusion. Another thing that nobody mentioned here, but we did talk about when I took this course at the fall, is that maybe the top row is a man, right? I don't think there's a single, not a single woman out there. And in the bottom, you have like at least like 3 or 4 women. So sexism is also reinforced by stable diffusion, and so is discrimination and stereotyping. So obviously, we don't need any more of that in the world. But yeah, the average face generated for each prompt strongly reflected racial and gender biases, and it actually amplifies stereotypes. So we need to make sure that when we utilize AI, we don't end up doing this, right? And that's what this slide's mainly about. I should also probably stop and pause and ask if anybody has any questions or anything. Yeah.
I have a question. So is stable diffusion the name for this model, or is it is this model an example of stable diffusion?
So this model, yeah. So somebody say something.
If it's an example, can you define stable diffusion beyond this model?
So stable diffusion itself is just a part of deep learning, and it's where you convert text to image models and you put them in a chart like that. So that's what stable diffusion is. Okay. It's a subsection of DL itself. Any other questions? It doesn't have to be about this slide. Maybe like about any of the other slides. We just whatever. Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, it's about the slide 1 before.
Yeah.
Could you be able to like give an example of projected trade-offs?
Trade-offs. So for example, let's say this sort of comes into like design implementation when you're designing an AI system. You could make it more comprehensive and accurate at the trade-off of it being more costly and more inefficient. You could make it more inefficient for the sake of it being more cost effective. So stuff like that. When you design a system, you're like ultimately you're never gonna have like a perfect system basically. You're always gonna have something missing. There's always gonna be some sort of flaw, right? And that's what algorithmic bias is. Algorithmic bias is basically you determining what flaw are you willing to accept and concede in your system, and depending on that, because everybody has like a different opinion relating to that, right? So that's why it's a form of bias, and that's why it falls under algorithmic bias because it's a system bias, right? So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Any other questions? Okay, yeah, let's move on. So how else does biased AI affect real world topics? We have resume screeners, and resume screeners are basically, um, like when you apply to a job, you give your resume in, right? I'm not sure if this ever happened to you, but this happened to me once. I applied to a job like at 2:30 a.m. once, and I got like rejected in 5 minutes. And that's how you know that they're using AI to like auto reject. This is basically that. They read your resume, they look for certain things, and if they don't like it, then the AI will just automatically reject you because nobody's at like at 2:35 a.m. rejecting people, right? So that's one example of it. You could train AI on redlining tainted data, um, and basically this is mostly used like in the business world. So you could train AI to like auto reject some people asking for a loan, maybe based off like a credit score. If their credit score is too low, then you just automatically reject them. And yeah, you have like diagnostic tools trained mostly on life saving shit. So, but remember how we were like talking about like a decreased set of sample sizes being an issue? This is that basically. So if you're like in medicine and you're training like an AI tool to like recognize like a skin disease, you're gonna need people of all backgrounds in that data set, right? You don't want just light skinned people or dark skinned people because that would impact how AI reacts to those patients when you haven't trained them on that data set yet. So, these are issues that we have in the modern day world, but it's important that instead of like running away from these issues, we actually address them and try to resolve them. So, does anybody have like any ideas of how we can like fix these matters or fix these questions or fix these issues? Cover?
You could just like try and diversify the data that's being put into the model.
Yeah, like pretty much like that's like the go-to answer, right? What's your Diego?
Oh, Davey.
Okay. Anybody else wants to answer? Go to you first. Then you.
I'm not sure if this is possible, but maybe you could like adjust the weights to put more weight on like the less diverse, sorry, the less a data that's like less representative.
Right, like the less accurate data, like to compensate for that. Yeah. Okay. So you're thinking in terms of like neural networks. Okay. I see. I see. You got something?
I was just gonna say like make it part of the company policy. You get someone who's job, and then you get that if they don't like test for that with an AI. If you're working at a company and you're using an AI model for like a large organization, put it in the reporting meetings policy to have that. It has to make sure it's there. It needs to also have some sort of consequences for something or like give somebody the job to make sure it's there.
I see. So you're saying like maybe like a project manager in a company should have that new policy incorporated into their job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I see.
Or else, like, how are you gonna force people to do that if they don't? Like, it might seem like extra work to give more data, but you have to implement it. It's important.
I see. I see. Nice. What's your take? Okay.
Well, you had a human supervision as like the last stage for something, like for the resume screeners, like you have the AI could go through it, but then also having somebody go through the like rejects and see if there was anything like missed or biased.
Right. So that's actually how human in the loop works. Human in the loop. Okay, I thought I actually had it explained on the slide, but what it does is, you give your AI something, and it gives an output, and a human enters the loop, and it views that output and makes sure it's correct. If it's not, then the human will like recalibrate the AI to make sure it gives a better answer next time. But that's basically what the human in the loop system does. You've actually perfectly described it with the resume screener. So that's that. Yeah. Moving on. There's nobody else wanting to say anything. Well, you were Daisy, right? But I'm kind of memorized. So you're Daisy, you're Lavender, and you're Cherry Blossom. Okay, so so how else does biased AI affect real world topics? So we talked about resume screeners in depth. They audit the training data for good representation, and they retrain or take good resumes for underrepresented populations. And it ultimately causes it to like equalize the odds. So these are like other solutions that we have to the previous slide. So either you improve the resume readers by giving them more balanced resumes, and you audit the training, so like you have a human involved, and this will basically cause it to like balance the scales. So yeah, let me see what it is 5:37. Okay. More importantly, AI Excel should be safe to use. So in addition to bias, safety, security, and reliability are very core tenets of AI ethics. So we're going to be talking about how you can jailbreak chats, and we're going to talk about how self-driving cars utilize um, safety measures when it comes to AI. And ultimately, we're going to talk about social and ethical responsibilities that we have on us as a society for developing secure AI systems. Specifically for chatbot jailbreaking, we're going to talk about like what is actually like dangerous and security of built-in guardrails. Yeah, we have a lot of slides on that. So moving on, we're going to talk about who is responsible for the misusage of AI, right? Only 35% of global consumers trust how AI technology is being utilized by organizations, and 77% of that population thinks that organizations must be held accountable for their misuse of AI. So ultimately, what it comes down to is if you're misusing AI, if you're a lawyer, do you sue like Anthropic or OpenAI, or do you sue the organization that's using OpenAI's or Anthropic's technology for their misuse? So that's a legal gray zone in general. But ultimately, 77% of people think that the organizations that are using it or misusing it should be held accountable instead of like a company like OpenAI or Anthropic. But yeah, what do you guys think? So, what AI output do you guys interact with? And how much output do you trust from your like AI that you use? So yeah, feel free to like raise your hand and explain. Oh, what's up?
I use Claude a lot for like some homework assignments, and
Okay.
I kind of trust like a 50-50 sometimes because some of the things I'm searching up like around like history, I have to like cross reference the timeline, and it just sometimes doesn't match up. So
Okay, okay, I see. That's valid. So do you double check what AI gives you, or do you just like
double check.
anybody else? Yeah, what's up?
Well, I use the cloud system, but when the output is generated, I also send to the ChatGPT to double check what's the extension of links because cloud always make up some links that I cannot use it. So it's okay, but like sometimes more like 90% trust.
Yeah, Claude's done that before actually. It'll genuinely make up a stat line. You'll ask it like, "What's the source?" and it'll really just tell you, "I made it up right now." I'm not kidding. I've seen that happen. But yeah, that's why That's why you should like double check um, what your AI tells you. Um, yeah. Anybody else want to think? Yeah.
I was having it like you explain like a physics problem to me that I already knew the answer to, and it got the answer wrong and got the explanation wrong, and then I like fed it into a different model and it output it different. But it like I don't think you can always trust it.
Yeah, exactly. See, now you had like the benefit of actually knowing what to expect, right?
Yeah.
If you didn't know the answer to that, then
Yeah, I
would
would've
trust.
thought it
Yeah, you
was
would trust it, right? You got wrong. I saw your hand first. I'm confused.
I use it a lot for coding, but I've heard like a lot of stuff about how like AI written code isn't like as good as like human written code. So what I do is like I run a sub agent after a while, to like clear the context and like see if the code is good, and it usually finds a lot of problems, and then you just implement fixes from that.
Yeah, people think that live coding is like super duper easy, but like even to live code, you need to have like a certain level of proficiency in programming because AI won't always give you like the correct code, so you need to like spot the errors out. You only spot the errors out if you're good at coding. Yeah.
I was just gonna say it's similar to the physics problem example. Like sometimes I'll ask for an explanation or like help on how to do a problem, like a math problem or a chem problem, a physics problem, something like that. And then the answer, like the answer that it gives, specifically for physics, might be wrong, like the number, the value output, but the explanation might be right. So then like I have to kind of like it'll teach the problem, but it might not give the right like numerical output because the calculation itself it was like it missed something in the calculation. So that you can't trust the output, and that's kind of good because then you have to learn to do it for yourself.
I see. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just can't trust it when it comes to calculations. Did you get all their TA groups? Okay. Yeah. So when it comes to responsible AI, you need to like talk about like prediction accuracy. So prediction accuracy is basically about how successful the AI really is. You have traceability, which is like the documentation of data,